I'm Kyle Platt here with JP Medved, the author of Granite Republic, which is a new short story published through Liberty.me. You can subscribe to Liberty.me and check it out, or you can purchase it on Amazon, your choice. But it's a pleasure to speak with you, JP. And yeah, let's talk about this book.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Would you like to really quickly just give a teaser summary of what Granite Republic is about?
So, Granite Republic is it's an epistolary novella, which means it's told in a series of uh, blog posts and emails and video transcripts and tweets, and it essentially follows the success of the Free State Project, which, if you're not aware, is a project to try to get 20,000 libertarians to move to New Hampshire. So this story kind of games out what happens when the Free State Project actually succeeds, and kind of the inherent conflict there between a bunch of libertarians who now actually have some real power and the federal government.
Sure. Well, that's interesting. It's sort of well, not really nonfiction, but you know what I'm saying. It's hopeful fiction.
Yes, it's based in some level of reality, and I've actually had a couple Free State Project, some people high up in the Free State Project say that they, it seems like I did a lot of research on the project. Seems very realistic. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Sure. Are you in the Free State Project?
I am. I've not yet moved, but I have signed the pledge. I've got a coin from the Free State Project, so official member.
Cool. Okay. Well, you've signed the pledge. You're all theirs now. You can't take it back.
Exactly.
So, as a student of literature myself, I have found it interesting that one of the greatest popularizers of libertarian ideas, although she did not like the term herself, was Ayn Rand, and she did so mostly through her fiction, not through philosophy. Most people get into libertarian ideas through politics or economics, but I feel that we've underused literature, and it could be quite a bit more effective for us. Do you agree?
Absolutely, and actually, I don't know that. Well, I don't know that I would agree with your assertion that most people get into libertarianism through philosophy or economics. I think you have a lot of people that get in, and actually, Liberty Magazine did a study a couple years back on kind of how people became libertarianisms, and by a wide plurality, you have people saying that they became libertarians through either reading Ayn Rand or Robert Heinlein, who, if you're familiar,
Oh yeah.
wrote he wrote, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, which is a hugely libertarian science fiction novel, very, very good, highly recommended. But him and Ayn Rand are kind of mentioned in the survey as some of the most influential libertarian thinkers. I think, and there's a ton of research to back up the fact that stories are more persuasive than tax policy graphs and things like that, like you would get in a Cato policy paper or something. So, you look at if you're familiar with Chip and Dan Heath, who wrote Made to Stick, which is it's a business book, but it's all about the kind of how ideas are transmitted effectively. And they devoted a whole sixth of their book to storytelling and why it's so important and how effective it is in getting ideas to be sticky. And they found actually, let me see if I've got a quote here. They referenced a study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, which says that, or concludes that, attitudes formed by direct experiences are more powerful, and stories give us the feeling of real experience. So, when people are reading a story or are watching a movie, and there's a sympathetic protagonist, they tend to put themselves in that character's shoes, and they experience the story along with them, and they find that that person's thoughts and beliefs, they tend to absorb and kind of see as more plausible and reasonable because they're experiencing this firsthand.
Sure. No, I think that's a very, very important assessment. I think you can look at, or at least, I don't know, I would say this. You can look at some of the lack of success for libertarian ideas, and I think that you can look directly at presentation. Now, libertarians, I think, become frustrated when they say, look, we have all these facts and figures, we have graphs, we have empirical evidence that these ideas work better. But
Yep.
you're right. People don't respond to that. People respond to the narrative. And Republicans and Democrats, especially, have done a tremendous job of selling a narrative.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at every successful politician starts their speech or peppers it with anecdotes, and there's a reason for that. These stories are powerful, and it's interesting. Libertarians, I think, are so kind of caught up in um, just how correct the philosophy is with statistics and numbers that they haven't really taken time to look at the statistics and numbers of, well, all right, now how do we actually convince other people that this philosophy is correct? Um, and I think that's honestly the job of fiction and narrative and storytelling. Um, and we you're right, we haven't had a lot of people like that since Ayn Rand and Robert Heinlein, to really kind of carry that torch. And there's a few out there. And certainly starting now, I think we're seeing a lot more people interested in conveying libertarianism in different ways, to different types of people. I think the kind of uh, economic statistics approach works for certain types of people. It works for the people that tend to be kind of hyper rational and may already be studying economics and things like that, but that's not the majority of people. And to really popularize it, I mean, you got to get into, when you've got a culture that has Oliver Stone movies deriding capitalism as greed, and you've got Margaret Atwood books that are kind of attacking all of these other essentially libertarian beliefs. And you don't have anything combating that at the popular cultural level, you're going to lose out no matter what. I mean, it's I think Breitbart, Andrew Breitbart, who was a conservative but still kind of correct on this, said culture is upstream of politics. So if you can't win the culture, there's no way you're going to be winning the political game. There's no way you're going to be winning elections if that's your thing. I know a lot of libertarians that's not, but winning elections or getting people to stop voting and becoming good little anarcho-capitalists. If you don't win the culture war, and convince them on that level, you're never going to convince them politically.
Sure. You bring up Atwood. I like Atwood, and it reminds me of something funny. I tell this story constantly. I've probably told it a ton of times on these video interviews and in person with people. But one of the funniest things that Anthony Gregory has ever said to me is, if you're reading a book and enjoying it, chances are it was written by someone who doesn't understand economics. And And sadly, that's somewhat true. Now, it might not
So
be,
far.
yeah, it's true. Now, it might not be that, some libertarianism is the antithesis of good writing. It might just be the fact that, the kinds of people that get into fiction writing, the kinds of people that get into academia and such, generally are or become pretty basic liberals or socialists. But I wonder why that is. I don't know. I'd like your take on it.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is that maybe that economic ideology or the economically liberal ideology has not translated so much into great literature?
And I think there's maybe two parts to that. I think the type of person that's going to go into kind of a high literature as opposed to maybe genre literature like science fiction or fantasy, is probably going to be the type of person that is going to do an MFA. They're going to kind of immerse themselves in these literary circles, which tend to already be highly, highly liberal. So that's going to skew their perception um, regardless. Um, but then I also think, a lot of the because libertarianism kind of started out as this very um, uh, numbers-driven, hyper-rational type philosophy. Um, the the initial people that kind of attracted others, um, obviously attracted like-minded people, and um, if you're the type of person that's into econ and math and all this sort of thing, you're probably going to be more interested in genre fiction. You're going to be reading science fiction. You're going to be reading fantasy. Um, you're likely not going to be reading, Beloved or any Atwood, for instance. So I think there's kind of a two-parter there. And the other thing is, libertarianism just has not. Uh, we haven't cultivated our creatives. We haven't sought out people that are creative. We haven't really um, put out a foundation for them to kind of build off of. And there's not really a support network. There's not an existing support network versus you look at literature or just kind of leftist creatives, and there's probably millions and billions of dollars worth of support for them out there. There's these communes you can go to create your art rent free. There's all of these institutes. There's basically anything that's government funded in the arts is going to be heavily liberal biased. Um, and libertarians don't really have anything yet to combat that. I think some of that is starting to come out from the grassroots. This is kind of a bottom up process. We've got things now like Liberty.me with the culture and fiction section, where people can kind of have these conversations in the discussion section. There's libertarianfictionauthors.com, which is the Libertarian Fiction Authors Association, which is all focused on fiction. Totally free to join. That's actually been started by I think one of the guys who is behind the Prometheus Award, which has been an award for the best libertarian science fiction of the year, and that unfortunately does not always give it to. Well, I should say unfortunately. I think it's just because of the dearth in the market. Does not always give it to libertarians. You have people that write ostensibly libertarian fiction or fiction that kind of feeds libertarian ideals. Like if you're familiar with Cory Doctorow and his novel Little Brother, um, he's not a libertarian, but he's kind of a cyber rights libertarian, um, that writes books with heavily libertarian themes. But yeah, starting to see some things kind of emerge here. Recently, Glenn Reynolds, who runs Instapundit, posted about a magazine called Liberty Island that just started up online. Now they're a little more kind of conservative and libertarian, but they're providing a forum now for authors to get short stories and things out there. It's not yet a paying market, but we are starting to see kind of this ecosystem of libertarian artists and creatives start to arise here naturally, which I think is probably the best. It's probably better than having Peter Thiel found a Libertarian Arts Institute or something. But
Yeah, quite
it's a slow
possibly.
process. It's a slow
Quite
process.
possibly more effective, at least. Usually top down. Well, we've seen what's happened with top down funding of the
Yeah.
arts. It's not pretty. Hey, will you join in my conspiracy? I am trying to make the arts section of Liberty.me the largest and most vibrant part of the site.
I will. I've contributed some posts already, and I'll make sure to add some more. Yes,
Okay, because I want to take over all the other stuff. Like,
Good.
I'm putting it out there for everybody. So unfortunately, it's not much of a conspiracy anymore. But that's the goal. Hey, promise me that we continue this conversation, because this is, I think, really important. This is really important to me, and I know it's important to you. We need to foster that appreciation for art and literature in the libertarian community, and you've done a great job with your short stories and your books, and Granite Republic, which is now available on liberty.me. Everybody go read it And yeah, let's do that. Let's continue this conversation on the Liberty.me forums or something. That sounds
Absolutely.
great.
Yep. And thanks for having me. And yeah, I think, again,
Definitely,
libertarianism
JP.
through fiction, hugely important.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, JP.
Thank you. And emails and video transcripts and tweets. And it essentially follows the success of the Free State Project, which, if you're not aware, is a project to try to get 20,000 libertarians to move to New Hampshire. So this story kind of games out what happens when the Free State Project actually succeeds, and kind of the inherent conflict there between a bunch of libertarians who now actually have some real power.
On your choice. But it's a pleasure to speak with you, JP. And yeah, let's talk about this book.
Great. Yeah. No. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to really quickly just give a teaser summary of what Granite Republic is about?
So Granite Republic is it's an epistolary novella, which means it's told in a series of blog posts and so hopefully, fingers crossed.
Sure. Are you in the Free State Project?
I am. I've not yet moved, but I have signed the pledge. I've got a coin from the Free State Project, so official member.
Cool. Okay. Well, you've signed the pledge. You're all theirs now. You can't take it back.
Exactly.
So, with Liberty Me, I'm Kyle Platt here with JP Medved, the author of Granite Republic, which is a new short story published through Liberty.me. You can subscribe to Liberty.me and check it out, or you can purchase it on Amazon.
And the federal government.
Sure. Well, that's interesting. It's sort of well, not really nonfiction, but you know what I'm saying. It's hopeful fiction.
Yes, it's based in some level of reality, and I've actually had a couple Free State Project, some people high up in the Free State Project say that they, it seems like I did a lot of research on the project. Seems very realistic.